Ladies and gentlemen, we finally got our first peek of the Blood of Dawnwalker, a brand new open-world third-person RPG made by the former Witcher and Cyberpunk devs. These guys are coming together to make this insane-looking vampire game, and there's a lot going on here and even more to be excited for. We got a big developer interview, our first ever teaser trailer with some exciting gameplay reveals, and a bunch more to talk about. And by the way, consider hitting that like button for me. It helps me out a lot and lets me know you guys are enjoying the video. Thank you so much. Now, in the Blood of Dawnwalker, the main protagonist we're going to be playing as is Koan. And what's interesting is he's being turned into a Dawnwalker, someone who's able to walk that fine line, being able to live in the world during the day while having his more vicious vampire side come out of him at night. So it's not going to be a full-blown vampire experience all the time, if you don't want it to be. And honestly, I feel like it's really nice to have another vampire game thrown our way. I don't feel like there's too many of those going around or an oversaturated amount of RPG vampire games that we can kind of go through. But let me know your feelings about that, and am I just missing something? But in the start of the trailer, we see Koan carrying his little sister that's been affected by the plague before the vampires attack, which has got to be how we get the source of our powers and the core to Koan's motivation to keep fighting. This game is taking place in a fictional 14th century kingdom called Val Singora, located in the Carpathian Mountains. So very much inspired by Romanian motives combined with folklore and architecture from Eastern Europe, with the very gothic looking villages, churches, and cathedrals. Now, obviously this game isn't striving to put out the most historical, realistic replica of anything, so they have plenty of creative freedom to do what they would like. And I'm personally very happy about that, because with some of the footage that was shown and concept art, it just looks so damn good. And I don't know about you, but it's been a real long time for me to be excited for a game and finally get something that's getting that hype train going. Now, the continent itself has really been going through some shit. The land has been ravaged by war, famine, and the plague, and as the human population struggles for survival, this is where and why the vampire sees this moment to try to take power. Moving to the mechanics that this game is bringing to the table, to be introducing something very interesting where you're going to be able to play and fight very differently, like having completely new spell sets and bosses having brand new mechanics, depending on if you decide to take part in these sections of the game throughout the nighttime. Because during the day, we're just regular old humans fighting with our classic sword and board. You're going to have a very limited, if not completely cut off from all your vampire abilities, and can be killed just as easy as every other human. However, this starts to turn in the other direction when heading into the night, because this is where you get to play as a full-blown vampire, with much stronger abilities helping outside of combat, with better options for exploration, and of course, brand new in-combat abilities. And just from the trailer itself, we can see Koan sliding down the side of this building with his bare hands, ready to just bust people up, and it shows this very cool, what looks like Nightcrawler quick teleport, leaning into his fist weapon attacks that look very strong. And the developers already confirmed that there's going to be way more vampire powers coming through for the vampire theme. It's also safe to say that we're going to have a much easier time traversing the city as a vampire, since we see him just hanging out on the rooftops of buildings and whatnot. And I think this is a very smart idea. It's a really cool take to know that they're putting the difficulty slider essentially in your hands, because you're going to have two different ways to go about your playthrough, with either embracing your inner vampire while you consume and hunt people down to increase your power, which in turn will make the game easier with being able to again traverse areas quicker and take down enemies and bosses with much more powerful abilities. However, you're going to be killing off potential quests, friends, vendors, and eliminating entire parts of the map so they're no longer useful to you. Or you can play as the good guy and try to keep your humanity alive and well, trying to resist the urge to consume, which will naturally make combat more difficult because you're not embracing your full power. And this brings another new mechanic into play called blood hunger, where even if you decide to be a full-on good boy and not to feed, not only is this going to affect the abilities that you're able to cast, but it's also going to influence how you're going to interact with other human NPCs around the world. You still could lose control and possibly feed on somebody that you really didn't mean to. So very nice touch and system that they're putting into place that requires a balance that still needs to be met. And having this double-edged sword throughout your playthrough to fight for your own humanity or embrace the curse to save your family should really keep things fresh through the game and make for a completely different experience if you choose to play it for the second time around. Now, we can also see in the trailer some potential different classes, or what could even be spec trees, to go into with the 3 distinct different types of vampires with all unique abilities and movesets. One seems to be much bigger than the rest, using his brute strength to obliterate enemies. The other one looks to be like a former knight, being a skilled swordsman, while still accompanying that with his vampire abilities. And the third one, which looks so damn good and is one of my favorites, it looks to be using blood manipulation and is what would be seen as more of a spellcaster to both damage and disintegrate enemies. So this should be some foreshadowing from the developers on what we could be expecting from these new vampire abilities. I'm really hoping that there's going to be like a choice that has to be made to determine like what vampire you plan on specializing in. Like if you want more of a brute strength with larger health pools or a caster wearing lighter armor. The diversity is definitely there, and it's not just like the classic one-size-fits-all vampire we're used to. I just hope that they implement this part properly. Now, as we see, the sister does get taken and will be cured by the plague by being infected by the vampire. And this cues up the narrative of the game with having a limited time, 30 in-game days to save his family. But this won't be advanced in real time. In fact, you're going to need to complete objectives and quests to progress your in-game time. So it'll feel more like a resource on its own that you're going to need to manage, and you'll have to make a decision whether you want to focus on one specific type of quest over the others. On a positive note though, with how the time works in this game and how it's attached to missions or events, you're really free to explore and take your time around this world, and you won't have to worry about the passage of time until you're ready. On top of that, even saving your family is a matter of choice from the looks of it. It seems completely optional, which again leans back into that replayability factor that this game potentially has. And this brings me to the quest design, as Rebel Wolves, the developers, stated they wanted to give players more narrative freedom. So this way, not everyone has the same exact experience. You get to craft your own path and make your own way through this game. Now, they didn't elaborate on this too much, so take it with a grain of salt, but what this typically means is that there's going to be a few major story beat decisions that you need to make, with some minor choices from side quests sprinkled alongside it that may change how some other events unfold. But it does sound ambitious, and I really like what they're ultimately aiming for here. It's not the biggest studio by any means. It's sitting around 90 to 100 people, so it's going to be a bit till we hear from an actual release date on this thing, but there's going to be some big previews and showcases planned for this year to look forward to. So I'm absolutely stoked about this game. I'm dying to see more of it, because the more information I get about it, I'm just dying to dive headfirst into it. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Feel free to check out some of these playthroughs if you're looking for something else to do, and hit that like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell, all that jazz, and I'll see you in the next one. Toodles!